Hello, Internet. When I'm researching stuff about my plug life, I find articles on the internet. Some are positive and some are negative. Now, I know which is which and which ones are true and which ones are a fabrication. But if you don't know a lot about electric vehicles, you can get a really bad opinion about them. Some of these articles are from well-known websites too, so you tend to give them more credit. But if you don't know what they're telling you is false or misleading, you may think that electric vehicles are a big danger to the world. So let's take a look at some of the articles I've seen in the last week or two and see how their titles don't really reflect what they're talking about on them. So here's a big website, NBCnews.com. The title says, electric vehicles pose real risks for auto workers with fewer parts and jobs required. Now this is a bit threatening. You think that the whole automotive industry is going to fail because of electric vehicles. But there is a lot of components that are in electric vehicles that still need to be assembled into a car. The difference is that the workers that are working in those plants can be replaced by automation, which is not necessarily a problem of specifically electric cars. And actually, there's a lot of part of the industry that's moved from manual labor to more computer science and that kind of thing. So there's actually probably more jobs out there in the automotive industry. The difference is they're not the guys sitting in the factories themselves. So next one I have is Bloomberg Tax. Now it says electric car growth sparking 300 billion budget loss for the states. That's a big number. What's the article about? Because that seems like pretty major, right? Well, basically all it's saying is that with the more electric cars on the road, there's going to be less cars taxed because we're not taxing the gas. That part of it is true. But the problem is they've also lumped this into autonomy. Now, autonomy and electric vehicles are not the same thing. These are two separate things that are happening at the same time. It just so happens to be happening at the same time. So unfortunately, news articles like to lump them together like they're somehow connected, but they don't have to be. Like there is non-electric cars that are fully autonomous out there. So it's a little misleading. So I also have originandcause.com. Now this is talking about electric car insurance and how things are going to change. So they have 7 points on here. We're talking about what the issues are with electric vehicles. And you could probably skim through it quickly and you get a really bad opinion about this. But let's just break down the 7 points they have on here. First one, fires. Second one, fires. Third one, fires. Okay, that's like almost half of it right there. All the same issue, but they've separated them out just cause. Now, the next one I thought was really interesting because it's the opposite of what you tend to read. It says severe injuries are due to the cars being too light. Typically on websites, when they're talking about electric vehicles, they talk about them too heavy and causing issues because the batteries weigh a lot and gas tanks don't weigh anything. Well, here's one that's saying the opposite. They're saying the cars are too light, so therefore they're going to cause accidents because everybody that's going to hit you is driving a pickup truck. Okay, whatever. Like, really? Next one is too quiet. Now, that is true. Electric cars are quiet, and they're concerned about pedestrians getting hit by cars that aren't making a loud enough noise. So what would the solution be? On all cars have a large muffler, a large noisemaker? Or hopefully people realize that walking with their cell phone in their hand kind of distracts them. I don't think it's necessarily the electric car's fault, but yeah, it is something that is sort of an issue and is actually being rectified already. But to bring it up, I guess, sure. Now, the next one, aggressive driving. Well, you have a car that's got a lot of power and has the ability to drive really fast. So people use it. It's not really the electric car's fault. Maybe just say don't buy a fast car if you're really that concerned. And the last one is battery disposal. And the issue here is it says that batteries are totally not recycled at all. And this is not true. There are recycling places out there. There are people actually that repurpose the batteries and reuse them in order for in-home off-grid storage for power. There's a lot of options here, and as more electric cars come out there, there's going to be more companies looking to do that specifically, because this is a lot of money just sitting there that you can disassemble the parts and get a lot of expensive materials back out of and put them back into a new battery if you needed to. World Economic Forum says the dirty secret of electric cars. Okay, sure, dirty secret. What's that, right? Well, it comes down to where the materials come from they're talking about for electric vehicles. So in this particular case, they're talking about cobalt. For example, cobalt is something that is used in a small amount in electric vehicles. But you know what uses a lot more cobalt? Gasoline. when they're producing gasoline, a lot of cobalt is used in the process, and the cobalt isn't reused at all. It's completely consumed. Now, in a battery, you could reuse the battery and get the cobalt back out, and especially if the price of cobalt is fairly high, you're going to want to do that. There are places that are more specific to human rights, and companies like Apple and Samsung and all that kind of stuff can talk about their supply chain, and so could Tesla as well. But when it comes to gasoline, nobody's really going to care where your gasoline comes from, and nobody really knows that cobalt is a major part, a major consumer of cobalt. So it's just everybody thinks that cobalt is a major thing in batteries, which is definitely not, and if anything, is being phased out and will probably be completely phased out soon. MotorAuthority.com says, here's the problem with electric cars. Now, this is a really interesting article. I really had a hard time reading it though, because when I got to the end of it and I tried to create a summary for it, it basically said the problem with electric cars is they have a battery in it. That's it. It's not talking about the battery. It's not talking about the negatives of the battery. It just says it has a battery and that's a problem. No real information in here. I wonder why this was written at all, but I guess they had their quota, right? BBC.com says 5 major challenges facing electric vehicles. So let's take a look at these challenges, right? 1, charging takes time. Clearly, even putting gasoline in your tank takes time. And they're not even saying that it takes an excessive amount of time. They're just saying it does take time. Come on, guys. Next one, limited choice. Now, this is something that will be rectified in the future because as you buy more companies are going to get on the bandwagon. If we are stuck with a limited choice, that's not us as consumers' fault. That's the fault of the manufacturers. And if they're not making anything, then they're going to go bankrupt. So that's going to be fixed one way or the other. Next one, backing the right technology. Now, here's an interesting one. As a manufacturer that you're making an electric vehicle, do you make a lithium-ion battery which you know works, or do you go for some moonshot where you're thinking this battery could be the change of the whole world? As a manufacturer, you're not going to go for that moonshot more than likely. So it's not really a major challenge I see. Who will pay for the infrastructure? This is a good one. So to imagine that you need to charge your car at some point, somebody's going to have to pay for it. Now, currently, a lot of companies are coming out with a charging solution. Will charge you money to charge your car, just like a gas station. You see, the big difference, though, with gas stations when they first came out, they were actually subsidized by the government. You want to open a gas station? We're going to give you some money. They're not really doing that with electrification, though. Maybe they will, but currently it's private companies, which is partly why you have the issue about how many chargers there are. And then the last one is zero carbon fantasy. And we've talked about this before. This is where people think that somehow electric cars don't have any pollution. They don't be produced somehow. They just pop out of the farts of unicorns or something like that. And they're totally emission free. And of course, any energy comes from somewhere. So there's got to be something. Even solar panels have an emission because you created them somehow, right? TheConversation.com. It says, not so fast. The electric car revolution will bring problems of its own. And I'm sure any revolution causes problems of its own, but let's look what they got in there. So they say dirt in the supply chain. Okay, you have some places that maybe have human rights issues. Sure, your iPhone and your computer and everything does have some issues with that. It doesn't seem to be a problem for the average person though. Sure. Different motor, same problem. Now this is a really interesting one because from that title you think there's something to do with the motor. But that section of it is actually saying because you have a car, you're not going to go for a walk anymore. This is an electric car issue somehow. Nothing forces you to drive the electric car. You can still go for walks. You can still take your dog out. You can still go to the corner store. But apparently this is the electric cars issue according to this article. And then it says new transport paradigm. Now, here's another one where it says that electric cars and autonomy are somehow linked, but they're not. And here's a really good one. Bloomberg says, here's how electric cars will cause the next oil crisis. Now, we're all worried about an oil crisis, right? That's going to affect the prices of the oil. It's going to affect the price of transportation. It's going to affect this and that and that. And yeah, this is theoretically something that would happen where the demand for oil goes down, which would cause a pricing issue. Now, if any of you have been around lately and you've been going through the current pandemic, you realize we've actually been going through this same issue right now. And we're still working, we're still living. The market does figure stuff out. Having a lot of electric cars changes things slightly, yes, but the whole market will work itself out. It's not really a major issue, especially since electric cars are not going from 0 to 100% right away. It's a slow, gradual thing. So the market does take this in consideration. So here's an article from bakersfield.com. It says mandate for electric cars and zero future oil usage, a disaster that would smother California in solar panels. Wow, that sounds flashy. I can imagine driving out to California and all I see is solar panels for hours and hours and hours all the way through the entire state. I wonder what that would look like. I wonder how much power that would be. Well, the article goes on to make a lot of crazy assumptions, and it completely blows things out of the water and makes it sound like California uses a certain number of oil barrels a day to give power to the grid. But of course, that's not the only way power gets into California, first of all. And also, the amount of oil that they're using somehow would be directly tied into solar, which it will not be. Now, you can run your electric vehicle and your entire house on the solar panels that would fit on your roof. And actually, you'd have extra. So, heck, if we threw solar panels in every single building, we'd be covered. There wouldn't be the entire state of California covered with this. Heck, if you had the entire state of California, you would probably power the entire world a couple times over, if not more. Kind of crazy just to imagine, though, driving through an entire state and all you see is solar panels. I want to leave you with something at the very end, explosive ending to this video. Now, this is a video of what looks to be an electric car that just randomly exploded. But if you read into it or you look into the video a little bit more, you can see actually the fire department was dousing down this particular vehicle. They hadn't even blocked off the area. They were just dousing it down to cool it off, which is typically what you would do in an electrical car issue. You get the battery wet to cool it off and everything would be okay. Now, when we see the doors blow up and the glass blow and everything like that, you look a little closer and you see that this looks like it was an electric car that was charging or had been charging at some point lately, but it also has a gas cap on the side. So this tells you this is actually a hybrid. So you can't even tell necessarily if this was an electrical issue. And I've never heard of an electrical battery in an electric car causing a car to physically explode. Start on fire, sure, but explode? That sounds something more like an internal combustion issue, doesn't it? Anyways, thanks for checking out this video, and I'll see you guys on the next video. And hopefully, stay away from these kind of articles. They are just completely bonkers. And unless you have all the information, they sound like they're a major issue, where really they're not. Have a nice day.